Hi everyone, welcome to today's video, and today I want to show you my new physical TBR. So basically it's going to be a book haul, and in the previous video I also showed you my physical TBR, but now as I'm almost done with it and I have just a couple of books left, I recently gone book shopping, so I have this beautiful large stack that I'll be reading for the next few months. Let's just jump straight into my new physical TBR. And the first book is Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami. I don't really know what this book is about, actually. I just want to read this because it's Haruki Murakami and I love his books, but I don't really know what this is about, so let's read the premise together. Unicorn skulls and voracious librarians, Miles Davis and Lord Jim, science fiction, detective story, postmodern manifesto. All this rolled into one rip-roaring novel, tracking one man's descent into the Kafkaesque underworld of contemporary Tokyo. Murakami unites East and West, tragedy and farce, compassion and detachment, slang and philosophy. It sounds so right up my alley. I don't know what else to say. I don't even think you can have like a potential opinion on a Haruki Murakami book unless you read it. So this has like obviously some magical realism in it, detective story. The last book I read by Haruki Murakami was A Wild Sheep Chase, and that was also some kind of a detective story, even though because of the amount of magical realism that Haruki Murakami put in it, it didn't really seem like straight up a detective story. So he really balances the genres that he uses in his books. So like you can't say that it's 100% detective or only magical realism. I don't know, we'll see, but I'm very excited to get into this book. So that is what is it again? Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World. The next book is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and there were two types of the cover for this book in the store. First, I didn't see this one and I grabbed the one with an actual photo, and I don't like when there's pictures of real people on the cover. I kept looking for it and then I finally found it and grabbed this one because yeah, I like this cover better. I gather this is a completely sci-fi book. I don't usually read sci-fi. It's not like I hate sci-fi or anything like that. I just haven't read many sci-fi books to even have a coherent opinion on this genre. With this book, I've just been influenced to read it because I've heard a lot of good things. Even if you're a sci-fi beginner, it can still be very digestible for you. That kind of attracted me because yeah, at first I was a little bit scared because like again, I'm not used to reading sci-fi. This is about space, and it also like at the beginning it has these like pictures of a rocket. I think I would love a space book. This is now being adapted into a movie, or maybe it's already been adapted, and I think it's gonna be released in 2026. So I've just heard many things from people who will not typically read anything sci-fi. They read this book and they've all said that this is so good, hilarious, understandable, just easy to consume. Yeah, I've also heard about the movie. The actor that plays the main role is Ryan Gosling, and so yeah, I think the movie is well cast. And I've just recently caught myself thinking that I would maybe like to watch the movie. I love a good book to movie experience, so yeah, one day I just decided to go buy this book and read this first because it's about space and I do want to read something about space eventually in my life. That's why I decided to get it and then go watch the movie. Hopefully I like this book. That is Project Hail Mary. The next book is Keep Shock. I think this is the prettiest book that I own. This is something about traveling in time, traveling to different kind of worlds that have different perceptions of time. In some of the worlds that our main character travels to, time flows faster, in some time flows much slower. When a mystifying train journey brings Margot to another dimension, she finds that not only are there many worlds aside from her own, but that each of them has a unique relationship to time. Go north and a day can pass in a couple of hours. Travel south and the sun may take a week to set. Here she meets Moon, a traveling salesman in a realm at war with itself. Soon Margaret discovers that time determines everything: power, privilege, and her own survival. How do you spend time when it's running out and when you just met the person with whom you'd spend eternity? I'm expecting something a little bit of a heartbreak, maybe. Maybe not. Something adventurous, a little bit philosophical. So yeah, very excited to read this. That is Skip Shock. This book is a very interesting one by Han Kang. It's called Greek Lessons. This is a very short novel though. So it's about a woman who has decided to stop communicating with the world around her through speaking. She's also taking Greek lessons, as far as I can tell. As the lonely teacher, her teacher probably finds himself drawn to the silent woman, we discover a deeper pain that binds them, rooted in their families, their histories, their pasts. And as the novel unfolds, their stories begin to touch and their voices to intersect with startling beauty as they move from darkness to light and from silence to expression, before merging in a profound sense of unity. So they don't use this typical means of communication. I've also heard about one particular scene from this book. I don't want to tell you because I don't want to spoil anything. I myself hate spoilers, but in the end, that particular scene made me want to read this book. Yeah, Greek Lessons by Han Kang. The next one is Bubble by R.F. Kuang. I'm super excited to read this because I recently read Carabasis by the same author and I loved it so much that it's now one of my favorite books. And I've heard that this one has very similar vibes to Carabasis. First of all, it's dark academia. It's about students majoring in translation. It's set in Oxford, 1836. The city of dream inspires, in the center of all knowledge and progress in the world. And at its heart is Bubble, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise, until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? I'm expecting this to be something revolutionary about the students being against the empire they're in, the heads of this university. I don't know, just my assumption. I also recently read A Language of Dragons. It's also about languages and stuff, and I have a reading vlog about the book, so if you want to know more about it, you can watch that vlog. But anyway, it has like similar types of vibes, I think. Super excited to get into this, and we'll see if I love this book as much as I loved Catabasis. Okay guys, the next one is the most terrifying book on my TBR. It's The Stand by Stephen King, and this is so heavy. It's more than 1,000 pages long. It's 1,200. Yeah, 200 and something. I'm so happy though. I'm so happy that I own this book. I literally just had the greatest opportunity to get this book, because you can't always find a specific Stephen King book that you want. You sometimes have to wait until the store updates the stock, and this time I saw this and I grabbed it immediately. This is a fantasy. I've read The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I'm obsessed with the series, so I of course want to read something else that is fantasy from him. I think I do want to read the premise, because usually I don't read premises of Stephen King's books because sometimes they just don't really make sense. For example, with The Dead Zone, what the premise of The Dead Zone says is literally what happens at the very end of the book. So like I said, sometimes it just doesn't make sense reading Stephen King's premises. But okay, I do want to read the premise for this book because I feel like if I read the premise, it will make it much easier for me to get into this story, because it's huge. It's so long. I'm afraid it's like too complex, but I mean, we love complex books, but just intimidating just because of the size, and It's fantasy, but I've heard very, very good things about this, so I'm excited, but I'm just intimidated as well. First came the virus, and then came the dreams. A man escapes from a biological testing facility unknowingly carrying a deadly weapon, a mutated strain of superflu that will wipe out over 99% of the world's population within a few weeks. Those who remain are scared, bewildered, and in need of a leader. To emerge, Mother Abigail, the benevolent 108-year-old woman who urges them to build a peaceful community in Boulder, Colorado, and Randall Flagg, the Dark Man, the Apostate of Death, the Warlord of the Charnel House, and Prince of Evil. Now the survivors must choose between them and ultimately decide the fate of all humanity. That is The Stand by Stephen King. Okay, the next one is also by Stephen King. I bought them at the same time together. It's Insomnia. Don't know much about this. I wanted something atmospheric, something very vibey, a little bit creepy. Since it's called Insomnia, this is supposed to be set at night. You lose a lot of sleep. Ralph does. After his wife dies, he starts waking up earlier and earlier. Then he starts to observe some strange things going on in the small town of Derry, Maine. Auras, colored ribbons streaming from people's hats, and two little men wandering about after dark. That's when Ralph begins to lose a lot more than sleep. He realizes that mild-mannered friend Ed is getting dangerously out of control. To me, it sounds pretty much vibey. So yeah, I don't have anything much to say about this book because I've never heard anything specific about it other than the premise. So that is Insomnia. Okay, the next one has to be much more lighthearted. It's Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. It's a romantasy, I guess. First, after, I started seeing this book circling around the internet, I thought that I didn't really want to read it because I, for some reason, was convinced that this book revolves around a love story, and I don't think it's bad, of course, by any means. But the thing is, I prefer a book with a romance subplot. I enjoy a romance subplot much more than the romance being the main thing. I love when the story leads the romance, not when the romance leads the story, if you know what I mean. That's why I was well, I'm not sure, it's a fantasy, which I love, but if it's mainly about this love story, I'm not sure if I want to read it. But then I've heard that it's not your very sweet and cute type of a romance, maybe, I don't know, I'm still not sure, but I eventually decided to get it. It's also about gods and humans, which I find interesting. I don't think I've read anything like this before, so it kind of drew my attention at some point. And here we are. As far as I know, it's also a prequel to the Divine Rivals duology. I don't think I'm ever gonna read Divine Rivals, and I've heard that even if you've never read Divine Rivals, you can go into this book. Matilda is a young goddess blessed with humble messenger magic, carrying letters and secrets through the realms, including one of her own, a mortal boy who appears only in her dreams. Dreams, it's something about, meeting each other in dreams, carrying some messages through dreams. I sound so cool. It sounds so good to me. 10 years ago, Vincent of Beckett wrote to Matilda on the darkest nights of his life, begging the goddess he befriended in dreams for aid, but his prayer went unanswered, forever hardening his heart. That is until she arrives bearing a letter with the promise of a future beyond dreams, one that might rewrite the dark, blood-soaked ways of the gods, or end them. It just sounds good. I do want to read this. I do want to give it a go. That is Wild Reverence. And the last book on my new physical TBR is Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen. It's an adult fantasy with a romance subplot, which is obviously good to me. This is going to be a trilogy, so this is book 1 of the Silver Cloak saga. I'll read just a couple of paragraphs of the premise because it's way too long. 2 decades ago, the Blood Moons ruthlessly murdered Sav's parents, destroying her idyllic childhood. Hell-bent on revenge, she led her way into the Silvercloak Academy of Detectives with a single goal: find a way to bring the Blood Moons to justice. But on the eve of her graduation, her deception is exposed, and she's given only one option: go undercover and tear the Blood Moons down from the inside. So there are so-called Blood Moons that murdered our main character's parents long ago, and she now goes undercover right into their gang to fulfill her revenge, kind of. Also, why I become so interested in reading this book is because of the magic system. The magic system is based on pleasure and pain. Like, magic is fueled by pleasure and pain in this world. It sounds so captivating. Actually, I've been trying to avoid starting new series. I've been looking for standalones more than series now, but I'm just very interested in this one, and a trilogy is not such a big deal. I think it's not like too long. So yeah, that is basically Silvercloak. And that book brings us to the end of this video. Let me know in the comments if you read any of those books, or even if you haven't, let me know what you're currently reading. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.